Hi, today we're going to talk about the Columbian Exchange. Who got what from whom? Remember in 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed for Spain and made first contact with the Americas. We can talk about the cultural ramifications of what he did and how he treated Native Americans, but we're going to save that conversation for another time. Right now, we're going to talk about stuff. And what I mean by stuff is the exchange of plants, animals, and germs, which is called the Columbian Exchange. The term Columbian Exchange goes back to 1972 when historian Alfred Crosby first used that to describe the exchange of plants, animals, human populations, and disease. I know, human populations are animals too, but for our purposes, since the humans were actually the motivating force behind the movement of all of the other species, we're going to talk about them differently. In the Columbian Exchange, there were many plants that moved from the New World to the Old World, and from the Old World to the New World. So the plants that the New World got were things like wheat, apples, rice, coffee, onions, bananas, sugarcane, and citrus fruits. Think about what the ramifications are of this. We think of so many of these species as being absolutely indigenous to the New World, things like rice and sugarcane, rice being such a staple of many Latin American cuisines. But they did not originally come from the New World. We think of coffee as being something so native to Colombia or Ecuador, when in fact it originated in East Africa. The animals that the New World got were things like horses, sheep, cows, and chicken. Again, we think of things like the Native American populations in the American West as being inseparable from their horses. In fact, those horses were Old World species that were brought over by conquistadors after 1492. In the other direction, there were also quite a number of really significant species. Cocoa, beans, rubber, cotton, the potato, strawberry, vanilla, and the tomato. The most important thing to remember is the sheer amount of calories that were moving from the New World to the Old World. Without this vast amount of calories, the population increases that we begin to see in the 1500s and the 1600s could not have happened. And you have to ask the question, would the Industrial Revolution have occurred if it weren't for this exchange of plants and animals? The animals that moved from the New World to the Old World were less dramatic and had less of an impact, things like alpaca and llama. But turkey was a significant animal that moved. A really significant part of the exchange was disease, particularly the disease that the New World got from the Old World. Influenza, measles, and smallpox all came over with the Spanish sailors. And these diseases would eventually undermine the social fabric of most of the indigenous populations in South, Central, and North America. The only major disease to move in the other direction was venereal syphilis, which perhaps understandably moved with sailors. The downside to the Columbian Exchange is that it did result in the death by smallpox and other disease of up to 90% of the indigenous population of America. This is a pretty major downside. It's believed that when the conquistadors came and were trying to sort of conquer indigenous populations in Central America, they actually met with little resistance because the populations had already been so decimated by a combination of diseases that had spread like wildfire through the indigenous populations. The upside was that there was an increased caloric intake on both sides of the Atlantic. After the decimation of native populations, there was an uptick in food available, not just because there was no competition for food, but because of uh, large meat animals like the pig, which could be used as a food source, but also because with the availability of horses, for example, in the American West, the hunting of the buffalo became a much easier practice for Native Americans. Um, was it good? Was it bad? It's for you to decide. Thanks for listening to my podcast. See ya.